All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. This is ASAP in the morning with another edition coming at you, and lots of stuff going on in the world of sports we're going to get to. Obviously, basketball is a hot topic, and we'll get into that. I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things before we get into the whole basketball segment. One, is, Brittany Griner. We and Gonzo were talking about that in the pre-show. Her wife is now, asking, the U.S. and Biden to, do more to get her home and everything. And, like me and Gonzo were talking, I don't know what more, the U.S. can do to get Brittany home. I mean, shy of, sending in SEAL Team 6 to break in there and extract her out. I mean, we've already got sanctions on Russia from the Ukraine, so I don't know what more can you really honestly do from a political front, shy of physically just going in there and grabbing her. What more, Gonzo? What more can we do? What more can Biden do?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually agree with you. After we were talking about it, I mean, other than trying to go either or negotiate, giving up somebody or trading her for like you said, an arms deal or something. But I mean, do we want to get in the habit of every time something like this happens, give them a criminal bag? I mean, so
right.
I mean, it's a tough situation. I hate it. I think it's bullcrap. She's been there this long, but also like you had said when this first started that. When you were in the service, that when you guys went to other countries, they always told you if you break the law over here, you're in trouble. So when you're in other countries, you got to make sure you know what's legal and not legal, because a lot of places are a lot different than the United States. We can do a lot more stuff here than what other people can do in other countries. So when you go to them other countries, you just got to be careful and try not to get yourself in trouble.
And that's the thing. She said, the one person that can go get her is Joe Biden. And why are we not urgently, going and getting her? And look, man, I feel bad that she got detained, but I didn't tell her to bring hashish oil through the customs at the airport. Why is it? What can Biden do? I mean, yeah, I get he's the president of the United States, but again, shy of sending in SEAL Team 6, what leverage does Biden have over Russia to get her back? And what do you want us to give up an arms dealer? You want us to give up drug traffickers? You want us to give up all these people who are in prison for serious offenses? You want that kind of exchange?
No, I mean, all he could do is probably talk to him, which I'm sure he has. I'm sure he's tried to talk to him and seen what it would take to get her out. And who knows what their demands are? You know what I mean? So I'm sure that he's done everything that he can possibly do. At least I hope so. I would assume that he has. You know what I mean? But so I mean, I don't know.
This lady.
If you talk to him, and
Cheryl Griner, she just got her law degree actually. So she's a lawyer. She understands how the legal system works. So I mean, she's obviously a smart lady. But again, we expect, it's like our expectations are, to go get this woman, and drop everything that's going on and compromise everything. I don't get that. I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it. Mike Hughes, oh my God, it's like I'm getting blessed twice in the same week, man. This is crazy. I don't know. Is this the birthday week of Mike?
It's just Mike's week off of work. That's what it is.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, damn. And he's got a fresh haircut. Jesus.
Oh yeah, it's all right. My guy kind of messed. My guy wasn't there, so I had to go to a different guy. He kind of messed me up, but it's okay.
Mike, I hate to hit you with such a heavy subject, right off the rip since you came in, but I gotta get your opinion, man. Cheryl Griner, the wife of Brittany Griner, is upset because she feels that Biden hasn't done enough to get Brittany home. And like I was telling Gonzo, I don't know what more she could expect Biden to do. We've already sanctioned Russia over the Ukraine. So they've already got sanctions against Russia on that front. So it's not like you can just add sanctions on sanctions because they're already sanctioned. Like I was telling him, Shia's sitting in SEAL Team 6 and doing an extraction like that. I mean, what more can Biden really do to get her home?
It's an unfortunate situation to me. And my thoughts and prayers are with Brittany Griner. I truly, and Jay, this is the only time I'll swear, but I could give a fuck about basketball right now. It's mainly just how's Brittany's mental health, how's her physical health, how are they treating her? And no one really knows. The problem is, I think a lot of it with Donald Trump and the LiAngelo Ball situation, the difference with that, I've heard a lot of people compare the two, and they're really incomparable because one, there was a great relationship with China and the U.S. at the time. So it's a very different conversation. Whereas right now with Ukraine, everything going on in Ukraine and Russia, we are not in a, hey, can you do me a favor kind of conversation. We've already picked our side and we're standing with Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin's one of those guys who, it's a very cutthroat country, and they are going to do what they do, and they are not going to feel remorseful about it. A lot of people don't even know Megan Price. Happy birthday to Megan Price, by the way. It's a situation where she's even said it. The owner of Brittany Griner's team in Russia that Brittany played for several years was murdered by people of Russia. Like that's the craziest part. He was assassinated by Russia's own government. And then you have to put into a fact of, Brittany's situation of being an American from America. I bet you if I had to bet my money on it, Brittany's probably been bringing that stuff over for years and had no problem with it. But because of the situation that's going on now, I feel like they're probably a lot locked down on stuff like that. They're trying to take people. They're trying to do stuff like that just to show that they are not rocking with the U.S. They are not rocking with anybody who's not rocking with them. As for Biden, I'm not the biggest Biden supporter. I'm not the biggest Biden hater. I don't really care for him either which way. But it's a situation to where there's always more you can do, always more. But it's at what cost is something going to happen? Are you going to start a war over Brittany Griner? Are you going to release, like Russia wants, one of the biggest drug dealers in all of Russia for Brittany Griner? And that man is a murderer. Like that man has murdered countless people. So to give him back to Russia, it's a tricky situation because as much as I want Brittany home, someone like that doesn't deserve to be let go. And Jay, I put it like this. If Russia makes this demand, we want the top drug dealer from Russia. We want him as for Brittany Griner. We want it in a straight up trade. They're going to start taking people all the time because they're going to know that they can do that. And that's something you can't allow to happen. You can't.
You don't want to
exactly, because once you open that can of worms.
Right, because then it's going to be like, what's going to stop them from taking Mike Hughes? Or what's going to stop them from taking somebody else? And it's going to be like, you can't just keep taking people and expecting us to listen to what your demands are. And it's a very tricky situation. I want Brittany home as fast as she can, far more than just from a basketball standpoint. But it's just, I personally myself, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I'll put that comment up there right now. So Damien says, well, Russia's probably going to want us to lift the restrictions that Biden put on Russia, for Griner. And of course, and that's where Biden really is in a rock in a hard place, because how do you if you lift the restrictions, now you're going to have everybody, griping and complaining about, Ukraine, and, how do you take it away? How do you take away from the Ukraine to support Griner, and then the Griners are going to want? You can't just lift the restrictions because of Griner. I mean, and I feel bad for Biden because he's in a rock and a hard place. But And I feel bad for Brittany Griner and her family.
Yeah, it's just
either way, man. I mean, like you said, you either going to lift restrictions and then have the Ukraine issue, right, or you're going to give up a drug dealer. So, I mean, honestly,
he's in a no-win situation.
There's really nothing he can do.
Yeah, it's a bad situation all around, to be honest. And honestly, it isn't a situation that should be going on regardless. Because like I said, I feel like Brittany's been doing this a long time. She's been playing in Russia for a very long time. So I don't feel like that was anything new. I felt like she was very caught off guard. I felt like, it wasn't a normal routine check. I felt like they were checking for a reason, and that was the reason. And it's just really unfortunate that a country could be ran that way.
Yeah, and I don't want to, at the risk of sounding insensitive, and I don't want to sound insensitive, but like when I was in the military, they always told you situational awareness. You got to know the situation in which you're in, and if you're going to these countries that have issues with the U.S., then and especially if you're an athlete, so you already know there's a high value target on who you are.
I think the difference is though between it's not like Damian Lillard taking a trip to Russia. Like Brittany's lived in Russia. Brittany's been a part of this team for several years. So I feel like at the same time, if she's been doing that for all those years, right, and Russia's been, supporting her for those years, I mean, I don't see any problem in what she did. Obviously, if it's illegal, it's illegal. And that's something that she needed to be aware of. And that's something she probably was aware of. But if she had been doing it all that time, which I'm probably certain she was, and they just let it slide, it's bullshit is what it is at the end of the day on the side of Russia. But I mean, that's a whole different conversation. We haven't even chipped the iceberg on how that place is ran.
No, I get that. I get what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is Brittany, you got to know, man. Listen.
What's going on with Ukraine and everything else. Like I would. Yeah,
you got to know that. Like what you maybe were getting away with back then was because we weren't, we didn't have restrictions and sanctions on Putin. But now that we're basically tying up a noose on him, now he's looking for whatever he can get, and you're probably going to be project number one. I mean, because you're famous, and he knows he can get the American people to really put pressure on Biden. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just got to be when you're famous, you got to really be extra cautious.
Right, 100%.
But I do agree, man. Hey, look, what Russia's doing is BS.
Yeah, I mean, it's just who they are. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course it is.
They're always trying to get a leg over everybody else, and that's just the situation that they're at. And they're losing a war right now to farmers and people in the city of Ukraine because, I mean, it's a whole different conversation, but I didn't think it was going to go that way. But Ukraine's putting up a hell of a fight, and obviously, Putin's he's feeling that. He's definitely feeling that. What's going on, Frankie? I'll leave that one alone.
Frankie always got to throw something in there. I'm surprised Frankie's not on here this morning. Probably got them babies going on. But all right, we're gonna switch. Hey, a couple of things real quick. So Sam Darnold has come out or at least Matt Rule has come out and said that Sam Darnold has a chip on his shoulder, that he's playing with an edge now in training camp, that he's really focused, and Darnold is saying that he's fully confident that he could be the quarterback that the Panthers need. I mean, how much stock do we put in Darnold at this point? Do we really think that he can turn it around and become the quarterback? He says he's working on his feet work, which was a little bit of an issue with him. What do we think? Gonzo, and then Mike, I want you to wrap that one up. Do you think Darnold can actually still revive his career with Carolina and become a good quarterback?
No, I actually don't think he's going to be able to. I think the Jets ruined him. And when I say that, I don't mean I just think he's lost. I think he's lost all his confidence as a quarterback. I think he's not comfortable standing in the pocket anymore because he's took so many hits, and he's not calm back there anymore. I think being with the Jets his first couple of years and how bad they were, and how bad the offensive line was, I think he's lost a lot of his confidence, and I think it's going to be hard for him to get that back because once you can't be comfortable in the pocket, you're done as a quarterback.
Right. And so Mike, he says he's confident. He says he knows who he is and he's ready to go. Are we believing him, or is it like Gonzo? Do you think he's maybe just putting up a front and really he doesn't have the confidence?
No, I think he knows who he is. I just think he knows he's ass. Like that's just what it is. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I respect the confidence. But again, as a Bears fan, every single quarterback of the Chicago Bears I've ever watched has been confident. And it just, at the end of the day, it doesn't make you a good decision maker. It doesn't make you a good ball player. It doesn't give you that sixth sense or that ability to just make plays. And I could name guys in college right now that are 10 times better than Sam Darnold in year 5. You know, Ryan Helinski is a guy I was hanging out with the Sky game yesterday. He's QB1 of Northwestern. You know, he's one of the greatest guys, one of the most actual confident guys. He's one of those guys you don't have to hear him say he's confident. You know he's confident. If you have to tell everybody that you're confident, that's not the way. Yeah, you're not. Like, if you have to tell me that you're a leader, if you have to tell me that you're a good ball player, you're not. And that's the reality of the situation for me is I like Sam as a person. I think he's a great guy. From what I've seen, I don't really know him personally, but it seems like he's a good guy. He's got a good head on his shoulders. But he's not it. He's not the future of this franchise.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Like I said, we haven't seen anything positive out of Sam Darnold, and I agree with you. If you have to tell somebody, it should be just in your actions. Like when you're on the field, we should just see the confidence rather than you telling. So, right. Yeah, man, I agree. I wish Sam Darnold the best, but I'm with you, Mike. Man, I just don't think Darnold's the guy. And speaking of another guy, you know, you got Zach Wilson over there with the Jets, who's bulked up to about 221. He feels like his playing weight is going to drop down to about 218. He said he feels stronger. He feels like he's a better athlete. What do we think of Zach Wilson? Can he come and be the guy with the Jets, or is it more of just BS? Mike?
I think Zach's solid. I think Zach is going to be a good quarterback in this league. From what I've seen off him so far, I don't see Zach being one of those guys that's going to read a defense anytime soon. I don't think he's going to have those intangibles yet. I don't think that's going to come easily either, especially with it's Urban Myers, if I'm not mistaken, as the head coach of that team. And when you have a defensive heavy guy, you know, my Bears are going through the very same situation where it's kind of like you need to bring in an offensive kind of minded guy, and you keep bringing in these defensive coordinators to be head coaches, or Adam Gase, which both teams had as well, which is awful. So it's something to where I feel like with Zach, he's going to rely a lot on athleticism, and that's why they tried so hard to get Tyreek Hill, is because Tyreek Hill is one of those guys who as long as your quarterback is athletic enough, he's going to be able to make that play because Tyreek brings that separation. Now, if they bring in someone like Deebo Samuel, I don't think that's going to be as good as everybody thinks it is, because I think a big part of that is he's a gadget guy. He's a ran wide receiver. And I feel like with that, you have to have a quarterback who understands how to make those plays, how to make those reads, how to set up Samuel in a good situation. I don't see Zach Wilson being that kind of quarterback. I kind of see him like a Lamar Jackson. You're a human highlight reel, but when I really look down at the nitty gritty of things of what makes a good quarterback, I don't think Zach is completely there yet. But again, he's 22, 23 years old. It can change over the years, but as going into this year, I think he's going to be a lot better, but it's not really saying a lot compared to what we saw last year.
Yeah, Caesars Sportsbooks has the Jets at 5.5 wins, so it'll be interesting to see that. Gonzo, what do you think about Wilson and bulking up? And obviously, Salah has come out and basically endorsed his confidence level, saying that he's looking good, he's sounding good, that, you know, you can hear in his voice that he's more confident. Gonzo, is this the year that Wilson turns it around and gets it going?
I think he'll turn it around some. I kind of agree with Mike. I think he has a lot of potential. I think he could be end up being a real good quarterback in the league, but I think it's going to take him a couple of years. I think he got drafted higher than probably what he should have, so that they wanted to play him right away. Where if he would had a couple of years to maybe learn under somebody, I think that would have really been to his advantage. But I think he'll turn around some, especially because I think the Jets improved their offensive line, so I think that'll help. It'll help him out some. But I still think it's going to be 2 or 3 years probably before you see him really start hitting his peak.
Hell yeah.
I feel bad for the Jets. It just seems like the Jets have been waiting forever to get their stride back. The Jets haven't, been anything decent since Rex Ryan back in the day had the Jets, look at least a little bit more formidable. And we've just been kind of getting this, this sad effort right now. But it's going to be interesting to see where the Jets can go from here. And it's a rough time in New York, honestly, for football, with the Giants and the Jets, both hurting. But speaking of the Giants, what do we expect out of the Giants this year? Since are we expecting with the new coaching regime, Daniel Jones, are we expecting anything good from him this year?
I'm expecting them to. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, you're good. You're good, Chris.
I expect them to be some better because I think their offensive line got better. I think, hey, damn dog. No, I think that their offensive line has gotten better. I think that's the biggest problem Jones has had is he hasn't had an offensive line. If he can just cut down on his turnovers, I think he could be a solid quarterback for the Giants.
And let me ask you this: how far, staying in the NFC East, how far do we expect the Eagles to go with adding Brown on the offensive side and bring and short up some of their defense? Mike, how far do we expect the Eagles to go this year?
I think they go the distance when it comes to the division. I think it's in the bag unless something really special starts happening out of Washington, and with Chase Young probably gonna miss the beginning of the season or at least training camp, or I don't know what that ACL injury, what his timeline really is right now. But because I know it did happen later in the season, so it's a weird conversation, but it's one of those things to where I feel like it should be in the bag if everything remains healthy. I feel like the only problem I've ever had with Philly is your best runner on that team, the best guy in that running back group is Jalen Hurts. And I feel like they still do need a solid running back in that running game. Because I feel like if you have a plethora of running backs, kind of like a 49ers type situation or a New England type situation, then you really don't have one at all. If you have one guy that you can consistently go to and a solid backup, that's a different conversation. But it really is just kind of a plethora of guys. I mean, they bring in Jordan Howard every single year for what? You know what I mean? Just to hang out for a little bit. They have Miles Sanders, he's decent, but he's not great. But I do really expect Jalen Hurts. I watched a lot of his game at Oklahoma as a Sooner, and I really do think his game is coming and it's evolving. And I think A.J. Brown's going to be a big part of that. And people forget about Devontae Smith. Everybody talks about Ragnar. Everybody talks about them whiffing on Justin Jefferson. But Devontae Smith, if in year 2, if he can be what everybody expects him to be, I feel like they have one of the best wide receiver groups in the whole league.
Yeah, absolutely. And, man, I'm telling you, man, I feel bad for my Cowboys because we didn't upgrade crap. But it is what it is for the Cowboys, unfortunately. But Gonzo, man, how far do we expect these Eagles to go? Are they just division winners, or do they get second round win, or what?
I can see them winning the division. I don't know if they'll make it too far in the playoffs, just because kind of like what Mike said about the running back situation. Plus, a lot of it's going to depend on Jalen Hurts' development from last year to this year. I think he has the tools to be a real good quarterback, but you just never know how long it's going to take to be able to read those defenses. I'd
no
say
doubt.
A good shot winning the division, but I wouldn't expect them to make a deep playoff run.
So another question I have, understanding the world of football, is Kyler Murray is up, for a contract, and I think he's looking around the $280 million. Why? Is he worth it?
No. Why? I don't like. Kyler's in this weird situation where he's demanding things, and I don't know why he's demanding things. You haven't done anything. You haven't shown us anything. And as good as he is, I think he has great intangibles in football. Anybody that calls him short is weird to me because he's taller than me. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not a tall quarterback. We've seen it before. Russell Wilson's one of those guys. So I'm not going to put him in a box just because of his height. But I just haven't seen anything from him. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen good flashes, but it's that conversation of if you're willing to sit the entire season, you're not Deshaun Watson, kid. Like, you don't have a national championship under your belt. You didn't do anything in Oklahoma. Right. You didn't do anything in Arizona. So for him to be acting the way he is, I think it's very childish, especially with the D-Hop situation. It really does show you who's the boys amongst men and who's the men amongst boys. Because, J.J. Watt, obviously, I think he's still a part of Arizona. It's one of those things where, he stays quiet, he stays locked in. But for you to be a QB1 and have so many outbursts about your contract situation, to me, that screams an issue.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And like I said, my biggest thing with him is just and I think it's what you're saying is inconsistency on his part. He hasn't put up consistently, good seasons. Gonzo, what do you think about Kyler, man? This $280 million.
I don't think he's worth it. Like, I agree with what you guys said. What has he done? And he's been real inconsistent, just shows flashes. And a lot of times, man, I know I've said this before, but if you watch his body language, he looks disinterested. A lot of times he don't look like he wants to be there. And I've always felt like the only reason he came to football was because he knew he could get the big money right away. Where in baseball, you're probably you might be in the minor leagues for a year or two and you don't make that money. So I've been telling my son since Kyler Murray got drafted that he was only going to play one contract and he was going to leave to go play baseball. And I still think that could happen, that he might go play baseball here before too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And that's why I have an issue with Kyler Murray. Hey, I'm not saying he's a scrub, but $280 million, I'm just not buying it, not yet.
He shows flashes of being that kind of guy, but he's not that kind of guy is consistent enough.
Right. But what I'm wondering is if the Cardinals don't give him the 280 and he hits the free agency, could then the Panthers or somebody who's in desperate need of a quarterback jump in and just say, hey, we're so damn desperate, we'll give you the 280.
I mean, I wouldn't if I was the GM of a team, but I could see somebody doing it.
Yeah, and that's my point. I can too. I'm not saying it's worth it, but I can see somebody, jumping in there that is desperate need of a quarterback. Even Seattle needs a quarterback. I mean, I know they say they can believe in Drew Lock all they want, but we know Drew Lock isn't the answer for Seattle either, and that's really what Seattle is needing is a quarterback. So, and
I'd like to say, Jay McLovin, I'd like to say, as I was walking away to grab my ASAP Network sponsored Gatorade. We're not sponsored, but if they want to sponsor us, they always can. But I heard Gonzo say it. This kid's going to go back and play baseball. And I truly do believe if this kid doesn't get the contract he wants, he's going to go play baseball. And
you think so? He does that?
Dude, I'm telling you, Jay.
I've been saying that since he got drafted. He's going to play one contract in the NFL and then go play baseball.
I told Pride. I was telling Pride. Now, you guys cover baseball too, so we have a great panel for this today. But I was like, the Oakland Athletics, they traded Chapman, they traded Olsen, they traded everybody away. And I was like, I'm going to go make a custom Oakland Athletics jersey and put Kyler Murray and then have number 1 on there and just wait for it to happen. And I was just doing it to mess around. But now it's like that conversation of I really do think he could go back and play baseball. Just because there's a lot of guaranteed money in baseball. Like it is there. The contracts are fat. You could hit look at Jason Hayward of the Chicago Cubs, $200 million to bat 190 for 7 years. I mean, that's just what it is. And it's like, obviously Jason was better back in the day, but there's that stock value of, okay, this is what you are. You're a 2-dimensional player now. You're a Bo Jackson. You're a Michael Jordan type guy. And it's like, we can have that conversation of Kyler going back to baseball. And I don't think it's too far out of possibilities, especially with the injuries that he's had recently. I mean, the kid's been getting banged up pretty bad. And I think that's why he wants as much money as he does, is because he wants that security of, if I do get banged up and I can't play anymore, obviously my stature and my physical attributes aren't going to be able to carry me the entire way. So I feel like Kyler understands that, and that's why he's trying to get his biggest bag. Rightfully so. He just doesn't have to be a dickhead about it. And I feel like he's kind of being a jerk sometimes about it, and I don't like that. It's like, oh, I'm not going to play. Well, then don't. I don't really care. Like, do what you got to do. I'll trade you. Like, don't think I won't trade you to the Jets. Like, I'm perfectly fine with trading you to the Jets. I don't care. Like, at all. I'll send you to Detroit for Jared Goff at this point. Like, I don't care. Like, the kid just, I don't really like the attitude, but I see where he's coming from.
By the way, dickhead is a current phrase for a Gatorade.
No, it is not. The current phrase for Kyler Murray.
You dickheads. No, hey, here's the deal with Kyler. So if he goes to baseball, he's gonna have to go to the minors. and there's
Very
no
long
money
time.
in the minors. So, and that's what if it doesn't pan out for him? Then does he try to come back to football? Because look, just because you think you want to play baseball, I mean, it doesn't necessarily get a guarantee that you play baseball. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not saying he can't get to the majors.
Right. I think he's 4 years removed from playing any type of baseball. I think I would like to say he's been in the league for 4 years now. But it definitely is a conversation of like, does he still have it? Because for me, even as someone who played ball for a little bit, you take off, 1 year and then anything you had is just gone. You lose that second year. So if he's put all of his stock in the football the way he says he has, can you still play baseball at that high productive level? I don't know. And how good of a baseball player was Kyler Murray really going to be? I also don't know. It's always a question mark. It's always going to be something. You're also not the tallest guy on a baseball field either. So, I mean, there's that as well. But I think just because of the name alone, the Oakland Athletics would do it. I think he would definitely play in the majors as soon as possible, just because, Jay, they have less than 1,000 people at these games. Like, that's horrible. And they drafted Kyler Murray, so they have the rights to Kyler Murray. At least for now. So it's definitely that conversation of, if they want to sell tickets, they will bring in Kyler Murray, whether he's good or he's bad. At least that's what I would do at that point. I would just sell the team.
Yeah, he's a name draw.
Yeah, free Oakland, but it is what it is. But I would definitely bring him up.
But you know what, though, at the same time, I'm not sure, but when Michael Jordan was playing baseball, was he under the White Sox umbrella in the minors?
Yeah, he was on the White Sox.
And they never brought. I'm surprised they never tried to bring him up. Just for name recognition alone.
They did bring him up.
Did he actually play in the majors?
Yeah, he played a while.
I'm misunderstood. I thought he was just strictly in the minors. That he didn't actually make it to the major league.
No, he made it. He made it. He wasn't good. He was really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, he made it.
Yeah, that's Jordan. I can't imagine how hard it is to play dual sports like that. Because baseball, man, the hand-eye coordination in baseball is really amazing. And when you're trying to bat, 97 mile an hour fastballs, 100 mile. I went to a batting cage one time and I saw how fast that was, and I was like, "Oh, there's no way in hell I could even hit that. I can't even see the damn ball."
I just swing, bro. Like I don't even try finding out where it's going. I just if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I just walk back to the bench.
Bro, I'm just saying, like, it's so fast. I don't know how they see that. Like they say, well, how do you know it's coming down to that? Because by the time I can even think about it, the damn ball's already in the catcher's glove. So I don't know. I've always thought baseball was amazing to me at that level, to be able to hit balls that fast. Because I can't see it. If I can't see it, how the hell am I supposed to hit it?
Right, like the fastest ball I ever hit was off of my boy Scotty, and it was like an 88 mile an hour fastball. And I don't even understand how you run after that, because my hands felt like I just like punched a dry wall. Like it was awful. It was horrible. Like I felt shell shocked. My hands were shaking. It's like for these guys to be hitting baseballs coming out 100 to 105, like I can't even imagine. It is insane.
Yeah, that's insane to me. Real quick, so the last thing I wanted to talk about before we get into basketball was Tua. I wanted to kind of talk about Tua for a second because
Jay, are you
this.
gonna talk about a single quarterback that I like today?
Hey, I don't know, but I gotta ask you a question. I just gotta look. Hold on. Watch this. So Miami goes out and they bring in Tyreek Hill, probably the fastest specimen in the NFL. But yet he's underthrowing him. Like he can't hit him because he's either A, too fast, or B, Tua just can't throw the ball that damn far. But I mean, do you think this is going to be an issue going forward?
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
I think it's one of those things, and it's no disrespect or to poke a bear while he's down, but I never thought Patrick Mahomes was who Patrick Mahomes was set out to be. I didn't see him being the next GOAT. I don't see him ever being the next GOAT. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he relies a lot on his athleticism, though, and a lot of the people around him. Obviously, Travis Kelce being a dual threat wide receiver, tight end, he does great things. Sammy Watkins being a speedy guy, and then Tyreek Hill, the cheetah. Like you could just that's the beauty of Patrick Mahomes. He can beam it 80 yards, but Tyreek's going to be there to catch it, and that's the difference with Tua. is Tua has thrown less than 6 40-yard passes in his entire NFL career. And it hasn't been long, but if you've only thrown the ball over 40 yards, 6 times? That's bad. And let's not be fooled. Like, they have a solid roster. Gesicki, you have Devontae Parker, you have Jalen Waddle, you had Will Fuller, you had a great squad of guys that you could throw that ball to, you could throw that deep ball to. It's just not in your wheelhouse, kid. And obviously being left-handed is a part of it as well. But that doesn't mean that you can't throw the ball 40 yards. That just means, certain plays we're not going to design around you because we understand that it's better in favor of the defense. But it's something to where I feel like with Tyreek's not going to be able to slow down. Tyreek's not going to want to slow down. And I think that's why they tried to make such a big push to get Deshaun Watson, is because they know Tua is not the guy. They know they messed up, but they also understand if they trade Tua, that's their ass, because then they just got rid of their head coach, who honestly was blackballed by the entire NFL. And it's that conversation with Brian Flores is like, why did Brian lose his job if you were going to keep Tua and then you immediately got rid of Tua? So that contradicts itself in its own. It's kind of like that conversation of the Bears get rid of Mitchell Trubisky to save Matt Nagy and then immediately fired Matt Nagy. And it's kind of like, well, now you don't have either of them and you just look like an idiot. So Ryan Pace loses his job too. So the general manager brings in Tyreek to try to save that. But I think you brought in the wrong guy. I think the guy you were supposed to bring in was Deebo Samuel, because I think he fits a lot more of the short route, short kind of play style that you're really looking for with Tua.
Absolutely.
With Tyreek, it's like, it's just going to be really annoying, bro. It's going to be like, oh my God, Tyreek Hill has broken his man. He's 80 yards down the field and Tua threw the ball away. Like, that's just, he's not going to make those throws.
Yeah, no, that's true though, and that's why Gonzo. I guess my question for you is Miami is bringing in all of these offensive weapons. God knows they've got a backfield of running backs that goes a mile deep, and they got all these wide receivers that they brought in and drafted and whatnot. But do you think that they basically have overloaded every position they can, but they just don't have the right guy at the wheel to operate this offense for what it has?
Yeah, I don't have no trust in Tua getting the job done there. He, for one, like you guys are saying, he can't throw the ball deep. So Tyreek Hill was a terrible pickup. Hell, Jarvis Landry would have been a better fit for Miami than Tyreek Hill.
I think so too.
That would have been nice, a return with Jarvis.
But I thought I never really was behind Tua. Didn't see all the hype even in college. I mean, yeah, he was a good college quarterback, but I didn't understand all the hype coming into the NFL.
It was because he went to Alabama, though. That was the only thing.
And not only is it about his arm strength and things like that, but he also has a lot of freaking injuries that are major with the hip and everything else. I mean,
not taking a shot at Ryan Fitzpatrick, but Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing better than Tua. Tua kept getting benched for Fitzpatrick. I mean,
I love Fitzpatrick.
And I like Fitzpatrick, but you're probably not a franchise quarterback if you're getting benched for Fitzpatrick.
He's been
especially
a
if you're a young guy
for like 13
that was number 3.
I think so. I mean, something like that.
Yeah, if you're the third draft pick, you shouldn't be losing your job to Ryan Fitzpatrick.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I just felt like if Baker, they're not going to do it, but hell, I think Baker would be a better quarterback in this situation than Tua. But it's interesting, man. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see how this NFL unfolds.
I used to be I was a big Baker favorite coming out of college, but I've kind of got a little soured on him now. He hasn't turned into what I thought he was going to in the NFL.
I like how Tannehill has reversed his comments about Malik Willis. First, he comes out and says, "Hey, it's not my job to be his mentor, but if he wants to watch me, hey, learn what you can learn." And then now he's reversed and says, "No, hey, I called him up. Hey, we're good. I'm going to help him out, this, that, and the other." I think at this point, Tannehill realized he kind of messed up with that comment. And now he's trying to do some PR damage control. Would you say?
Yeah, I think, I didn't hate what he said. I didn't hate what he said at all. I felt like, it's a conversation of I'm QB1. Like, who are you? You know what I mean? And it's the same thing Aaron Rodgers said, and no one had a problem with it when Aaron Rodgers said it. Difference is Ryan Tannehill is not Aaron Rodgers. I feel like Ryan Tannehill is very overrated. I have him and Kirk Cousins in the same class as a QB. You know, he's a great guy for the regular season. He can, you know, give you a 9-8 season or whatever the stats are now. It's 17 games. Well, I think that was right, 9-8. But it's something to where he's not going to win you a playoff game. He's not going to win you a championship on his own. And I feel like that's a big part of what they're missing right now, especially. Like, I think Ryan Tannehill is going to have a very, very shitty season without Julio Jones, without, you know, a fully healthy Derrick Henry. Because I don't think Derrick Henry's fully healthy either with that titanium foot. And then you lose AJ Brown. So it's like, to me, it's, you know, this conversation. I always forget the name of the wide receiver they have, but he's like Treylon Burks. He's one of my favorite wide receivers out of this class. I think he's going to be one of the best wide receivers out of this class. But I don't think that's going to be enough to save Ryan's job. But again, Jay, it's like if you're the host of this show and someone brings in a new kid and they're like, hey, we want you to mentor him, he's the future. That's not your job. That's not your job at all. Your job is to be the host of this show. And until they tell you otherwise, you're the host. So for me, Ryan, what he said wasn't wrong. I just don't like Ryan. I'm more of a Malik fan myself. I was like, I mean, your job might be taken a lot quicker than you think, but if it wasn't for that contract, I think Malik might beat you out for it. But it's something to where I don't hate it. I hate how we're soft now and we're forced to like guys or we're forced to be this. Like we're playing football. We're not playing golf or tennis. Like this isn't something to where we all got to be buddy kumbaya walking down the 18th hole together. Like no. Like, this is football. There are rankings for a reason. There are depth charts for a reason. And if you are QB1, you better act like it. I would be pissed if Ryan Tannehill was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. I'm comfortable with being on the bench. I would be pissed. I'd be like, why are we paying you 30-something million a year to just be okay with your job getting taken from you?
Right. Yeah, it blows my mind with that, man. It really does. And, again, you know – I think at the end of the day, man, you know, I think Ryan, it's not his job. Yeah, and you know, and if you're a mentor, it really is a two-way street. You know, I mean, you know, do you want to take on a lot of that responsibility because that's a lot of investment on his time when honestly he's not getting paid extra to be a mentor. He's getting paid to throw the ball down the field. So I get what you're saying too, Mike. Man, it's crazy.
Right. And I think, and I wanted to ask you too, especially Gonzo. It's one of those things where I feel like a quarterback isn't a mentor unless he's in that position. Like Nick Foles was a mentor to Justin Fields. Andy Dalton was a mentor to Justin Fields because the big part of that is they understand they are no longer QB1. They're just not.
They're a bridge quarterback.
Right. They know their backups. Now you look at Ryan Tannehill. He throws 3,734 yards, 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. And it's like, that does not scream to me backup quarterback numbers. So of course he doesn't want to. If you're giving me Andy Dalton numbers where you have more interceptions than touchdowns and a touchdown interception ratio, or you have less than 2,000 yards, then yeah, dude, you better mentor. You better do something.
That's all you're not playing in the league.
Right, like do something that puts you in the league. Like Josh McCown. Josh McCown did that for years. He did that with Sam Darnold. He did that with a bunch of guys. He knew he couldn't play anymore, so he's just mentoring. Ryan Fitzpatrick is kind of starting to do the same thing to where he understands, okay, these guys aren't going to give me this signing bonus anymore to be the QB1 long term, but I'm going to be that bridge gap guy. Teddy Bridgewater is the same way. And it's like you're looking at Ryan, and Ryan still gives you good production. As much as I shit on him, he gives you good production. So for Malik to think he's QB1, I mean, you're going to have to fight for it, kid.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton was an amazing mentor. I don't know what you're smoking, Damian. He was an amazing mentor. He was awesome. I love Andy Dalton.
I didn't have any problem with Tannehill's comments. What bothers me more is that he's backtracking. Don't backtrack. You were said the truth.
Don't backtrack.
You said the truth. You didn't say anything wrong. Don't let people pressure you into backtracking just because you're getting the media is getting on you a little bit.
I'll respect.
That's what I don't. That's what I don't like about it. Don't backtrack because you didn't do nothing wrong.
Right.
You can ask if you ask 90% of the it should be 100%. But any starting quarterback you ask, they shouldn't be okay with. I'll be the mentor. No, you don't want to teach the guy who's going to take your job.
Sam Darnold's okay.
Right. All right, folks, we're going to switch gears now. We're going to get into this basketball. Mike, holy crap, man. I guess, you know, they went to the broom closet. They broke out the brooms. And I guess now they're putting the brooms back in the closet, Mike.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They're putting the brooms back in the closet.
Yeah, it's an interesting game.
Now, Mike, I said this earlier. The only way Dallas can beat Golden State is if everybody shows up. I mean, everybody.
Right.
Because it's going to take everybody to take down that juggernaut. And everybody showed up. Finney got you 23. Bullock got you 18. Brunson got you, 15. Doncic got you 30. And Kleber got you 13. And Dinwiddie got you 10. So, everybody, they shot the ball at 50%. So, they showed up.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that maybe Golden State just kind of didn't necessarily give them the business, that they kind of took it a little easier on them, and maybe that's where they got the one, or was that a legitimate win by Dallas?
No, I thought it was a legitimate win by Dallas. Obviously, it's go big or go home, so it's always Damien. But it's something to where you have to look at it for what it is. It's go big or go home. And in Dallas, all the momentum was shifting towards Dallas. It's that conversation of who they are and who Luka is as a person. And I think Bullock and I think everybody else, they've definitely bought into that. They even understood. Reggie Bullock said after the game, we're not going to lose another game. And whether you believe that or not, it's the conversation of I feel like they truly do believe that. They believe they're going to win every single game. They're going to win 4 straight. And that's the mentality I feel like Luka Doncic brings to this team, and Jason Kidd has tried to establish in a culture, is a winning culture. And I feel like even down 0-3, they still think they could fight in this. But like you said, like I feel like Spencer Dinwiddie, obviously I always forget the other one dude's name, Kilpur. I don't know what it is, but Kleber. And then you have guys like Bullock, who has 0 points last game and then has 18.
Yeah.
This game. You don't know which guys you're going to get every single night. So I feel like if all of them can hit every single night, I think they can take them to 7 and beat Golden State. I do. I really do. But I don't think you're going to get that. I think you have a group full of role players outside of Luka, and I think Brunson's on the rise as being a good talent as well. But other than that, like other than Luka and Brunson, there's nobody that I could truly rely on this team night in and night out.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. Gonzo, do you feel like that there's just too much inconsistency with Dallas that's going to prevent them from taking it to 7?
Yeah, I do too. There's they got a bunch of role players, like Mike said, and they're just not consistent enough. Last night they shot the ball lights out. They were hitting everything. And some of them were tough shots too. It's not like they were all wide open shots, but they were hitting everything last night. I just don't see them being able to do that for 3 more games in a row. I think it's going to be over next game.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Golden State.
I think Luka needs to drop 40, 50 in order, and not even 40 because he dropped 40 twice and they lost both. So I think he needs to drop 50, or somebody else has to get 40, in order for them to win the next game.
Or I don't think they're going to shoot the ball like they did last night, where everybody's just hitting.
Right, because you especially have to look at it from Golden State's perspective now too. And Jay and I were talking about it the one day on the morning show, is that we have this idea that Miami and Boston's going to go 7. So I think Golden State wants to finish this as soon as possible so that they can have a rest, that they can prepare for either one of these teams. And I think that's the biggest problem right now is, okay, you gave 1 away to Dallas, but if you give away 2 and then you give away 3, then you're going to be fighting against Luka Doncic, who's going to be a tough battle. This guy's got a scar going down his face and he's smiling at you and he's doing it. And it's definitely something to where, I feel like they're going to want to wrap this up as soon as possible.
I think they underestimated Dallas a little bit last night. I think they didn't think Dallas was going to come out to play that hard.
Right.
And then by the time the
Warriors, I think the biggest thing
was a little bit too late. Now they almost came back with the bench players in the fourth quarter. They got within 8.
Yeah, they did.
I think there's no way they were come back with this game.
If they did, that would have been so demoralizing. But and again, Mike, I think the biggest problem for Dallas is their lack of presence in the paint, man.
Yeah.
You know, when they don't have the paint, then they go to just shooting straight three balls, and that's when everything just kind of goes to shit because the three ball is such a low percentage shot that if you're living and dying by the three ball, most likely you're not going to win if you don't have some presence down there in the paint. And I think they had the presence in the paint this game, but they haven't had it there before. And I think that's really kind of the biggest thing for Dallas.
Yeah, I think Conman made a good point too. Is just like Powell just and Powell shouldn't have to be. Powell's not the center of this team. He's more of like a forward. So I feel like, you know, he's what, like 6'10". It's that conversation of like, you don't have a legitimate big man. And I feel like that's where the Porzingis stuff is very heavily missed right now. But I don't think they'd be in this. I don't think they'd be in this position if Porzingis was here. So I think, you know, they're definitely going to have to figure that out during the offseason, whether that be Jokic or whoever they want to try to bring in. And I think it's definitely going to be a conversation, though.
You know, I got to be honest with you, man. Hey, if I'm Mark Cuban, I'm doing everything I can to try to get Jokic, man, some kind of way. I don't know if they have. I mean, I don't know if Mark Cuban was to try to talk to him, is that considered tampering? Do they have tampering like that in the NBA?
No, I don't. I mean, it's free agency. He's a free agent, so they can talk to him at the end of the day if they want to talk to him. I think obviously they would have to wait till the season's over, but the season's going to be over in like 4 weeks. So, I mean, they got time to do it. And I think obviously Luka and Jokic are obviously still really good friends. They're best friends somewhat.
Right.
So I think that's already an easy conversation right there. It's for a meeting, but it's a lot of money, Jay. It's like $270 million if he stays in Denver. And I feel like you would have to really pitch a great pitch. And then you have Luka, who's also making over $200 million. So what kind of team are you really going to be able to put around them? I don't really know. But they would be elite on their own. That's now everybody said Embiid and Harden are the next Kobe and Shaq, but I think Luka and Jokic would be probably
exactly. I'm definitely leaning more towards the Luka and Shaq because last time I checked, Kobe never disappeared in the playoffs. I'm just saying.
Like Luka's that Kobe Bryant type mentality. Like that's who he is, and he's just a dog.
Fucking fire alarm was going off. I had to take off. Girlfriend got.
Hey, listen, man, he's going to smoke so much pot over there, Gonzo, before the fire alarm goes off.
Girlfriend caught the damn trash can in our bedroom on fire, and our fire alarm or smoke alarm was going off. I had to go in there and wave the fucking stuff in front of the
Can you see it? I can just imagine if Gonzo lit his house on fire and he's running around and we're just watching it in slow motion. But, you know, again, man, to his point, man, I mean, if I'm Mark Cuban, I don't know, man. If I'm Mark Cuban, I'm taking Jokic to dinner, and I've got Doncic there with me, and I'm going to try to make the best pitch I can. And you're right, Mike. You're probably going to have to let go of some of your other players and bring in some other players that, you know, on the lesser dime. But, man, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch, man, with Joker and Luka on the same team.
Yeah. Oh, man, that'd be they'd be good together.
100%
together.
I mean, honest. I mean, all you need is just consistent guys. I mean, they don't have to be the best top stars.
The only weakness both of them have is defensively. I mean, that's the only weakness.
Like you look at a couple of those Lakers teams, especially like the 08 team. You look at it like Lamar Odom and Fisher and all these other guys that were around Kobe and Gasol, and they weren't great. Jeremy Lin, guys like that. It's like
your Robert Ory's of the world. Yeah,
and it's like they weren't the best well put together roster, but they won a championship because of the focal point of Gasol and because of Fisher and because of Kobe, obviously. So you have to look at that. Like I think Luke Walton was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah, I believe he was on that team.
Yeah, like he wasn't. They weren't solid. They weren't great, but they won a championship because of the top three guys. And I feel like as long as you give a couple Danny Greens in there, guys who can give you production, Dwight Howards, I feel like you could have a good team.
Real quick, and I know this is off topic, but we were talking about Zach LaVine, and the best landing spots for Zach LaVine, and I still thought for Zach the best landing spot would be to still stay with the Bulls and re-sign with them. But then again, I can see the Spurs who have a lot of cap space, and him and Murray are pretty good friends, and I can see him even going to San Antonio under Pop and doing something down that direction, because they would be still, like you said, they'd be a really young team, just like Chicago's a young team. But how do you feel about that, Mike? Where you think Zach's staying in Chicago and not going anywhere?
I think one, I'd like to say, LeVar Ball. I don't know who interviewed LeVar Ball and asked him about Zach LaVine, but whoever did that interview, why are you? LeVar Ball doesn't know anything about anything, first of all, so don't ever take anything into consideration when it comes to that. But all respect to Lonzo and his family, but it's like, why are we asking LeVar Ball about the Zach LaVine situation? He doesn't know. But it's something to where I had two destinations for Zach LaVine that I thought would really work. I feel like Dallas is one of them. With Zach LaVine and Luka Doncic. I feel like that would be a solid team, a good replacement for Brunson. You could do 2 sign-in trades. The Bulls get Brunson, who's 25 years old, and probably get Powell to make the salary cap work. And then you would obviously give up Zach LaVine. I think another one that's really interesting, though, is Atlanta. I think Trae Young and Zach LaVine are a very good combo. I think that's exactly what they need right now, is that number 2 star, because John Collins isn't it. John Collins is not the guy to be that face next to Trae Young. I don't think he likes Trae Young. I think that's been a conversation of he just doesn't like his situation. So I don't want John Collins on the Bulls. This isn't to help the Bulls, but Zach LaVine, I think San Antonio would be interesting, especially with Pop. I love Pop. I love my girl Carolina Teague. If she does her thing, I know she'd have a blast covering Zach LaVine in San Antonio with just DeJounte Murray, who's a bucket. People forget about DeJounte Murray. This kid is a dog. But I just feel like Zach is in a place right now where he wants to be the face of the franchise. And right now, DeJounte Murray is the face of the franchise. So I'm really curious to see where Zach actually goes and if that has anything to do with it, because there's been rumors about him wanting to talk with Portland. And obviously Dame is the face of that franchise, but Zach would be the youngest face of that franchise and he would be their longevity. So I don't know. I think we're in a weird place right now where I really don't know how Zach feels. I guess the only person that knows that is Zach, and I'd love to have him back, but if he doesn't, I'll gladly take DeAndre Ayton. I'll gladly go pick up DeAndre Ayton or someone else.
I think he'd be a good fit in Dallas.
Yeah, I think it would be a really good fit. But again, it's that conversation of like, if he wants to be the face of a franchise, Luka's almost the face of the league. So Zach's not getting close to that.
Right. I think if you bring in and Miles Turner, I think that would help Dallas out a lot.
Yeah.
Again, though, what I want to say is this: if I don't think that they have to bring in LaVine. I think that what they have with Brunson and Doncic is fine. What they need is a damn center that can hold down that paint, and that's why I think Jokic or Ayton. I don't know how well Ayton would fit in terms of holding down the paint, but he's going to do a hell of a lot better job than Powell and Kleber are giving you.
Right. That's why, like, for me,
as a defensively, and then he can also play on the perimeter.
Right. But Zach's not playing no defense. I promise you that. Yeah. But it's something. He's better. He's getting better, but he's not that guy.
No, that's why I said Miles Turner, because he's great, a great rim protector, and he can play on the perimeter as well. So I think his style would fit good with Dallas.
Right. But to what Damian said too, that's not happening. But I do see LaVine potentially going to Charlotte. I think playing with LaMelo Ball is also a conversation. I think he's going to go play with another ball dominant point guard. I think it's just going to see what happens. We really have to see there and sit down with Zach and have that conversation. I know he was upset about DeMar kind of becoming the face of the team, but it's also that conversation of, we gave you all the opportunities to be the face of the team and you kind of didn't take it. You passed the ball to DeMar, and DeMar was willing to take those shots. So I think we're going to have a serious conversation of what direction both teams want to go in, or both parties want to go in. And if Zach chooses to leave, in all seriousness, it's like, I appreciate everything he's done in Chicago. He came here when they were in the worst place, probably in the NBA, other than Orlando and Detroit. And honestly, he brought Chicago back. We're back on the map. We're back in the conversation of, being playoff contenders and being, a legitimate basketball city again. And I mean, I'm grateful for it. So if that was the last dance and that was the last go with Zach LaVine, it's sad. It was short-lived. I wish we could have ran it back one more year fully healthy, but I'll still always appreciate the 2022 season.
I give Chicago a lot of crap, and Mike knows that.
Yeah.
But again, the thing about Chicago is you don't really know what you have in Chicago because they haven't played a full season, healthy. Again, you had, COVID and things like that. So it's hard to say what Chicago could or could not do because we have not seen them at full strength throughout the playoffs. So I kind of would like to see them bring back Zach LaVine and see what Chicago can do fully healthy next year and see how it actually pans out for them. Because I do think, they could probably have a good team. But, again, they struggled against some of the top-tier teams. But to Mike's credit, they did have injuries. So, again, it's hard to say, what the real Chicago is when you haven't seen them play consistently because of injuries.
They played what, maybe 25, 30 games where they had their complete roster?
I think it was more like 10.
I was gonna say I knew it wasn't very many.
Patrick Williams went down week 2, and then he stayed out until like the last 2 weeks of the season, and then Lonzo went down like the last 5 weeks of the season. So they never really had a whole team together. Probably like the first week. Crazy. And they went 8-1 in the first 2 weeks, and then they were first in the East at a half, and I was just like, the second Lonzo went down, that was it. And it was like that was the writing on the walls. But I'm not saying that team would have won a championship, but I think they would have gave a lot of teams a run for their money, and it would have been a great series.
Do you think that Vucevic is the weakness or the Achilles heel on your team in terms of if you upgrade that center position, maybe that kind of even gives you more You know what I'm talking about?
I feel you. I just think Vooch is a different player in a different system. I think Vooch, obviously being the third, fourth option this year, still had 17 and 10 as his average. I feel like that's very solid for a center of his age. He's just not fast enough. He's just not mobile enough as a center right now for this fast-paced team. You have Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan. I call them the Skywalkers because they just walk on air, man. Like they just do their thing. They just dunk the ball. They're insane. They're athletic. And Vooch just isn't. That's just the reality of the situation. And it's not a shot at him. Luka Doncic isn't athletic. He plays very slow tempo ball.
Yeah, Luka does play slow. And I don't know if that's because of his – do you think Luka's issue is because maybe he just wasn't fully, in shape? And maybe that's why he's –
I don't think so. I think he's in great shape. I think he's just not he's definitely athletic, but he's not LeBron James built. You know what I mean? Like his build is very different. Jokic is kind of the same way. They have a very different build to them, but they get it done. You know what I mean? Like they are hoopers for real. They're just not purebred. I am a 5-star athlete.
You're not like elite athletically, but they're
right. And that's fine. Like not everybody's like that, but it's one of those conversations. Especially with Vooch, to where I feel like I'd rather have DeAndre Ayton. If we could trade Vooch, bring in Ayton, and then figure out Zach's replacement, like it is what it is. And that could be Kobe White. That could be Alex Caruso. We really don't know. But I think if you had a starting lineup, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, DeMar DeRozan, and DeAndre Ayton, I don't think we'd miss Zach as much as everybody thinks we would. I think Zach is obviously going to be missed. But if you bring in DeAndre and Alex Caruso moves up to the starting rotation, you have Ayo and Kobe off bench. I have no problem with that, especially with Billy Donovan coaching. Billy's a coach of the year winner, so he can figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am kind of curious to see how next year plays out because I think Phoenix. Let me ask you this: is Phoenix just? I mean, they had the best record in the year, but what do we see from Phoenix? Like, why can't they just get over that hump? Like, what is going on? They really shouldn't have lost to Dallas the way they lost to Dallas. So, was it just an off year for them? Because honestly, once he turned 37, him and Booker was weird. Him and Booker both just kind of faded out of that series.
Right. I think. My thing is you ride high in your high moments, and I feel like when they went to the finals and they extended Chris Paul, that was their Achilles heel. That was their biggest mistake. I give Chris Paul all the credit in the world. Obviously, we were all riding high when Phoenix made it to the finals. But my perfect offseason for the Phoenix Suns was honestly to trade Chris Paul. I felt like you trade Chris Paul and you bring in Lonzo Ball, who's very similar to Chris Paul. You have Lonzo Ball, he's 23 years old. You have Devin Booker, who's 26. you have a very young team that way. You have DeAndre Ayton, you have Cam Johnson. That's a very young team. Now you have Chris Paul on a $35 to $40 million a year deal, and it's like, why? You know what I mean? Like Lonzo would have been relatively cheaper. He's 10 plus years younger. I felt like they weren't really looking at it as a big picture. They were looking at it as we can win a championship next year if we bring it back, and they wanted to bring him back. And I get it. You can't be mad at him for doing that. I know my guy Evan. He'll tell you that it's that conversation of this team is very good. But I just felt like longevity wise, I think Jay Nesk, I even talked to Jay about it. I just felt like the contract extension of Chris Paul will eventually be the Achilles heel of this team. But it's rightfully so. Like, you had to run it back. You can't not run it back after making the finals and losing. If they won and Chris Paul wanted to part ways, it's a different conversation. But the fact that you lost, you got to run it back, or that GM just looks awful.
By the way, I knew that was a test. That's why I went to Phoenix. It was a test. I wanted to see if ASAP actually watches our show. So I knew that when I said something about Phoenix, if they're actually watching, they're going to show up. And lo and behold,
he did it to me earlier. He did it to me earlier. He was talking about Brittany Griner. I was like, oh, I'll get on.
No.
Hey, I'm just saying that I thought there's little nuggets out there just to find out that people are actually seeing us.
Yeah, no,
Jay, what's up, man? What happened to your boys?
I had a quick moment, so I thought I'd jump on. But to directly answer your question, Jason, I think that the Suns were in a weird position when they made the extension with Chris Paul, because they had to do it at that time.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, at that moment, Chris Paul's value was higher than what it should have been for the following 2 or 3 years after that 1-2 initial year. The other thing that I really took into account for this, that I don't leave a fault on James Jones for doing what he did, is this was right before that new TV deal. And remember, everybody was maxing out where they were at. And, with the new TV deal also came the new the new qualifiers to get certain levels in your contract. So I think that James Jones and the Suns were kind of put in a bind necessarily because of, remember, we were in the basement. And before Chris came, when Chris came, we were not only out the basement, but we're a premier squad. So you have to make that long-term commitment, not only for, that current team, but for the fan base. 11 straight years in the basement. And, you got to make that
Jay,
move.
do you think, though, they were as deep in the basement as people like to say? Because I felt like they were creeping right up the stairs before Chris Paul even came. They were in the bubble. They went 8-0. They were doing their thing. That's why, for me, it was like, if you wanted to sacrifice, I could see it realistically. It's not even just the Bulls fan in me. If you wanted to sacrifice, okay, we're going to let Chris Paul walk. We're going to bring in Lonzo, who's very similar to him. It's that conversation of he's 23. We can get him for 10 times cheaper. He's 10 times younger. If you want to do it that way, we could do it that way. But do you think they wouldn't have? Do you think they still would have been in the basement if Chris Paul didn't come?
It's not what if. It's the fan base. Right. 11 years, bro. 11 years, and we're not a franchise that's used to being out of the playoffs.
Right.
We're not a franchise that's used to not competing with the Lakers, not competing with these guys. So for the franchise, and you got to also remember, bro, we got the Robert Sarver issues.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of stuff going on. Footprint Center, we had issues with the Footprint Center for a minute. They were talking about whether or not they were going to stay there. Then they ended up making the deal to do the revamp at the stadium. So there was a lot going on in Phoenix outside of just what was happening on the basketball court. So there was a lot of incentive to make that long-term commitment to Chris Paul because of that name and that attraction.
Right.
So now here's my thing, though, and I was talking to Mike about this as well, Jay. I believe that this will get renegotiated. And I think the actual signing of that initial contract was set for renegotiation. I don't know if a lot of that was a permanent, he's going to work all the way through that contract the way it was. I think they had a mindset to come back and revisit and, redo that contract.
Interesting. Sure. So, from objectively, what is the expectation for Phoenix next year? I mean, do you see them advancing to, getting back into the finals, or, is Chris Paul maybe just a little too old now? Now that he's, slowing down a little bit. I mean, what exactly is the expectation that you have for your Phoenix Suns next year?
I mean, look, man, we saw guys like Steve Nash. The point guard position, they can adapt their game and stay a little bit longer.
Right.
So I believe Chris has a couple of more years, good, solid, productive years ahead of him. Next year, we have to win our division. We don't have to make the finals. We have to win our division, and we have to make a strong playoff push. But, everything comes down to DeAndre Ayton in this offseason. If we stay with the same team, we have to win a division. We have to make a strong playoff push. If we get rid of DeAndre, unfortunately, I think it gives us a year pass.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to switch gears real quick and go to tonight's game, which is Pride's team, the Celtics versus Miami. And obviously that series now is tied up at 2 apiece going into game 5. Should be interesting. It's been kind of a back and forth battle between these two teams. Both teams are kind of banged up. Both of them are dealing with injuries on both sides. So, what is your guys' prediction for tonight, and how do you see it unfolding? Do you think the Celtics can go in there, ride the momentum, and take the commanding lead, or is it going to go back and forth like it has been? And Gonzo, I'll start with you first, and we'll do kitty catter.
Well, I'm gonna go with the Celtics to win tonight. I think if they just play a game without turning the ball over, they're going to beat the Heat. They've outplayed the Heat in all but 2 quarters of the series. About so, and I think the Celtics are handling the injuries a little bit better than what the Heat are right now. I think the Heat's a little bit more banged up, especially with Jimmy Butler not knowing how effective he'll be able to play, because he didn't look right at all last game. So I think the Celtics are going to win the night's game.
Interesting. Mike?
I'm going to take Miami. I think a big part of it's Tyler Hero as well. Not playing last game is obviously it was felt, his presence not being there. Duncan Robinson stepped up for the first time in all season. So I was really happy to see that. Victor Oladipo, who a lot of people laughed at me when I said, wait till this kid comes back. So happy to see that kid just ball out and be able to be healthy for the first time in forever. But it's truly it's great to see him really doing his thing. I know Joe McConnell is probably is doing his thing right now as an Indiana fan. But I think Jimmy's going to be the X factor of this team. It's definitely that conversation of which Jimmy are you going to get, because Jimmy right now is very banged up, and Jimmy, he's such a tough-minded guy. He even says, after the game, it has nothing to do with my knee. I'm not going to make any excuses, but it does. It does have a lot to do with his knee. We all know that. He's dropping 35 to 40. He bangs up his knee, and then, obviously he puts up 6 points. And you can't tell me it's not about your knee. You can't tell me that's not a part of it. Now, obviously, there's moments in there to where it might have been a little bit more than just that, but it definitely revolves around that. So I think Jimmy being a little bit more rested up, Tyler potentially being back. I think Miami takes this one just because of my bias with Jimmy Butler. But Boston is one hell of a team, and Al Horford deserves all the credit in the world for what he's been doing as of late. I mean, that guy is just turning the time clock backwards.
Yeah, I like that last part too, because we were just talking about age, and Chris Paul. That's a dude that, I think the last 2 years has changed his game all the way around from what he used to be. And, this is like his third element or his third generation of his game, really.
Right.
But I got Boston. I think this is gonna go 7. I said it since the beginning. I think Miami has a better team. I think Boston has better individual players.
Right.
And I think what we're looking at is good coaching by both sides. We're seeing the adjustments be made. And I really think Boston right now is overachieving in this series, if you ask me. Um, I mean, of course the injuries have helped on both sides, but Miami is not. To me, Miami shouldn't be out there beating Boston like that. Miami shouldn't be out there losing to Boston like that. They have a well-rounded team. They have a bench. They have scoring on the bench. They have defense on the bench. And I think that they plug and play a lot better than Boston with their lineup that they have, to utilize. So it's been an interesting series. It's been a lot of X's and O's. To your point, Mike, Tyler Hero not being on the floor is a huge dent in that game. I think it.
It is.
Sometimes it puts
Yeah.
more of a dent than Jimmy not
Yeah.
being on the floor. Honestly, because Tyler just brings that energy, man, that they need in those times. So, unless Tyler comes out and resuscitates them tonight, I got Boston. So.
And another issue for Miami is you don't know what version of Adebayo you're going to get because he's he has been pretty inconsistent in this series. As a matter of fact, he really wasn't even a factor in the last game. So how do you think Adebayo is going to come out and play? Or what can we expect, do you think, from Adebayo series or this game tonight?
I think Bam's very different. I think of Bam Adebayo the way I think of Anthony Davis. In regards to the natural center position, I feel like you could see him as a forward or you could see him as a center, and it kind of just depends on the series or the matchup of which Bam you're going to get. So with a Robert Williams, with an Al Horford type situation, with a Daniel Tice, I think Bam really does need to step up and be that guy just because Miami doesn't really have an answer otherwise from the center position. At least not a consistent one. So I think Bam really does need to step up. Offensively, I think he's doing great, but defensively and from an offensive rebound standpoint, I feel like he does need to be a lot better. He had a great stretch in the beginning of last game, and then in the second half, they just adjusted to him very well. But I do think Bam just needs to be a 4-quarter type player, and he needs to play all quarters of the game. And that's the problem. With his game is I feel like sometimes he's just so focused on scoring and then other times he's so focused on rebounding. If he can find a way, which is easier said than done, but if he can find a way to just play both sides of the floor for 30 minutes a game, that's all you can ask from him. But it is a lot to ask, but it's the position you play. So, I mean, that's what you got to do.
I think it's also hard for him in this particular series, bro.
Yeah.
Al Horford, he boxes out well.
They're doing their thing.
Big body. He's heavy. He puts his body on you the whole game. And I think Bam, even if you look at the last couple of years of his run that Miami's had, I don't think Bam has really had to deal with the physicality.
No.
Like this series like this. And I think it's wearing on him. And let's be honest, guys. I've always said this whenever Bam comes up and talks about being quote unquote the best center or the best big man in the game. He's not a big man.
No,
I don't care what nobody says.
He's a 4.
He's a 4. He's an average sized 4. He's not the biggest 4 out there. He's slim. He's fit, but he's slim. And when you get versus these guys like Al Horford, and we can see it with DeAndre Ayton too. When they get versus these guys like Al Horford, they get against these guys like Joel Embiid, they get paired against guys like Cat. They're big, physical, true centers. Nikola Jokic. And these guys wear and tear on a guy like Bam Adebayo. And that's what we're seeing.
You hit it on the head, though, too, when you said, what has he been tested with? I feel like when you look at the 2020 finals run in Miami, what did they do to stop Giannis is they built a wall. And the only reason they built that wall was because Bam couldn't single-handedly stop Giannis, which is perfectly fine. No one really can.
No.
But it's that conversation of when you have as many bigs as you have, a Brook Lopez, a Giannis, you have to build that wall. And even though Milwaukee couldn't adjust to it on Eric Spoelstra's part, that was genius because I don't think they would have won that series if they didn't build that wall. But
Right.
you look at it, and the reason you have to build that wall initially is because you don't have a center that you could trust night in and night out to even compete with Giannis.
But here's the thing with that. At that point, we're looking at it like when you look at paper, Mike, on that particular matchup, you're like, oh, this is the perfect matchup for Bam. He's not a true center. He's not like this is the okay, perfect. We're gonna see Bam, and it wasn't like that. And that to me, it's not Bam playing 30 minutes. It's not Bam playing 48 minutes. It's not Bam playing 4 quarters. It's Bam learning how to play his game no matter who's on the court. And that's the problem with Bam to me that I see.
I agree.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Miami was kind of embarrassed on 2 different fronts. The first front that they were embarrassed on was the fact that all 5 of their starters combined for 18 points the whole game. That's embarrassment number 1. Embarrassment number 2 is you got out-rebounded 60-39. So, given, the lopsidedness of that game, what can we really expect from Miami coming into tonight? Can they put that behind them? And are we going to see a more different attitude in them and the way they approach the game? Or is Boston going to ride that embarrassment and take it to them again and keep pounding on them?
I just got 2 words for that. Well, it'd be 4 words, but Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra.
The key for Miami is to play defense and don't foul. Because if you look at it, Celtics only shot 39% last game, but they hit 32.
Yeah,
they hit 32 free throws. Don't put them on the free throw line, and that'd been a totally different game.
But Chris, but again, that kind of goes back to what we were me and Mike were just talking about with that team. They're undersized.
Yeah.
They are really undersized.
Yeah,
and they tried to get a little bit bigger, with the PJ Tuckers and Jay Crowders. Those are gone now. So they did try to get a little bit bigger, but it's an undersized team. And I don't think they take advantage of when they do have size matchups. Like when Jimmy's playing a smaller guy, I don't think they take advantage of those things like they should. But after a loss, like what you just pointed out, those numbers, Chris, Eric's looking at that. And Pat's looking at that. And I think that being as drastic as it was, we're going to see a different team on this next game.
And I do think a lot of what Adebayo is that the physicality between Horford and Williams, they're just wearing them out.
Right. It's too much on him. It's too much body. It's too much muscle. It's too much weight. And it's constant because they don't have any backup.
Right.
So what adjustments does Miami, given what Jay has talked about with being undersized as we know they are, what adjustments does Spo make to counteract that, or can you?
I don't think you do. I don't think there's any adjustment that you actually make. I think it's a mentality that you change. I feel like they've kind of lost that dog in them, that underdog story. I feel like guys like Tyler Hero, I love Tyler and I love his game, but I've seen a change in his personality in the last couple of years from underdog to kind of this Hollywood kind of face of Miami Heat. And I love that about him. He's on tour with Jack Harlow. He's doing his thing. But I do really feel like they need to get back to just being mentally the biggest dog in the room. You are not the biggest team, but you are the biggest dogs in the room. You need to play like dogs. Because respectfully, and I say this all the time, the reason I don't have Jason Tatum in the category of a superstar, I think he's on the rise of being a superstar, but the reason I don't have him as one is because I don't think he's a dog mentality type guy. There's nights he's going to give you 10 points, and then there's nights he's going to give you 40, but a dog is going to give you 30 to 40 every single night, and that's what a dog is. So I feel like you need this dog mentality that they had in 2020 that beat Giannis, that went tick for tack with LeBron, that did a bunch of other stuff. And I feel like they've kind of lost that since that finals run. And if they can get back to that and understand like, hey, like we didn't win a championship in 2020. That's the reality of the situation. I felt like Phoenix and Miami both had this conversation of, oh, well, we did it. No, you made it there. And that's cool. but you got to win it to be able to say something. So it's like, to me, I feel like they just need to go back to that Jimmy Butler hard-headed mentality of just being the most physical team out there, because Jason Tatum's not going to be able to match to that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, man. I think opposite. I think like Hulk and Spider-Man in this one. You know, you got the big powerful team. I put as Boston. You know, with Marcus Smart and Tatum and Horford and Grant, and they just play beefy and
But
strong.
Jay, think about it like this though. One guy you just named is a franchise type starting five. The rest of those guys, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, they're good pieces, but they're not like on paper what Miami is. Or what
I
Miami
disagree with
is.
that, bro. I disagree. I think Al Horford is a franchise starting five right now on most teams. I think that Jaylen Brown can go anywhere. I think Marcus Smart can go anywhere. I think Jason Tatum can go anywhere. So, but I think Miami plays best, and this is kind of rubbing off what you were saying with the Tyler Hero Hollywood thing. I think Miami plays best when they're running and gunning.
Right.
And that's what Miami needs to get back to. The big guys are slower, naturally. And bam, they're putting the bodies on you. Don't let them keep up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give them the ability to put the body on you. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're going back earlier, Jay, when I was saying I don't think Miami's been using their mismatches to their advantage as much as Boston has. And I think that over these next 3 games in this series, we need to see them utilize their mismatches. Because as much as Al Horford is a mismatch for Bam, Bam should be a mismatch for Al Horford too.
Right.
And that's the problem.
Hell yeah.
So, hey, last topic I want to talk before we get out of here is because I wanted to give Mike a little baseball, because I know Mike's a baseball guy, and I hope Frankie Cruz would be watching, because I was hoping to get his reaction in the comments, because when I say what I'm about to say, he's going to go, oh, Jay, he's going to give me the whole rundown. But here's what I'm wondering. The Yankees, right now, the hot team in baseball, right? Best record, so forth. But I told Frankie that, the knock on the Yankees is injuries. It's always been injuries, and now we're starting to see the injuries hitting the Yankees in a pretty prominent way. You got Chad Green, arguably probably one of their best relievers. Tommy John surgery, probably won't see him until 2024 at this point. So he's done for a hot minute. Then you see Aroldis Chapman, their closer. Now he's on the IL. And then you got LeMahieu, who's a scratch now and out with left wrist injury. And then you got Stanton, who's got some kind of calf tightness, so he's out. I mean, are we now starting to see the real Yankees come forward? And, what can we expect out of them going forward?
I think that's always who they've been. This roster especially. I love Judge. I love what Judge does. But unfortunately, Judge is somewhat of the same way. Anthony Rizzo, he's my favorite player of all time. That's my guy in Chicago, and I'm so happy to see him get this hot start that he deserves. Giving them MVP chance to A-Riz. But it's a conversation to where that's the team you put together. Even Aroldis Chapman, it's nothing new. Ever since his stint in Chicago, where Joe Madden abused his arm and had him throwing 5 innings a game as a closer, and it's like, what the fuck? But it's insane. And I think that's just the team you've kind of put together, is great players who can just never stay healthy at the same time. And the problem with that is if you don't have the greatest of pipelines and you don't have the greatest of benches, then that's going to be seen. Now, in a starting rotation, when fully healthy, a starting lineup, it's death row. Like they're going through it, and they're going to be mashing baseballs, and they're going to be pitching lights out. But this team is what it is, and that's like you have 9 Mike Hugheses on that team. And that was always one of my biggest problems, was just staying healthy. I always found a way to my shoulder, something was always wrong with my shoulder. I get a concussion, like something would always happen. And it's like, that's what this team is. Now, don't get it twisted. They might go on a losing streak for a while, but if they're healthy come October and they make it, and they can stay healthy throughout October, it doesn't matter how you finish. It really doesn't. And I think the Atlanta Braves proved that as well when losing to Ronald Acuna Jr. last year. Like, they didn't care. October is a different beast. And it's that conversation of, as long as we can make it there and we can punch our ticket in, Then we'll figure everything else out from there. So to have these injuries happen early, hopefully it's going to remain that way. Is okay, we're going to get it out of the way now. Everyone will be healthy later on. Hopefully it's just not a consistent thing. But I mean, they're still a great team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's kind of the way I was headed. I mean, we're used to seeing this from the Yankees. They're used to having hot start, players getting injured before trade deadline ends, and making a solid trade to really make up what ground they've lost because of the injury in the area, and make it to October, like he said. That's the stretch. I mean, there's 100. They got a short season this year, right?
Nah, 162.
No,
No,
they're
you're
playing
getting the
full
full
season.
162.
Okay, so we got 162 games. 162 games. That's a lot of freaking baseball. And it's a long race to October. And you know, those first two legs of this race are rocky. Some people fall off the ledge and don't make it back into the race until that fourth quarter. But as long as they're in there on that fourth quarter, the Yankees are hard to deal with. And kind of like what you just kind of mentioned, I mean, think about the Yankees of old. Roger Clemens, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez. Like, those were their nukes. But they were banged. Oh, yeah. And they were banged up here and there. But as long as Derek and Alex, right now it's Aaron Judge and Rizzo, as long as those guys are on there and they got one of their solid pitchers, they'll carry them. They're the hottest team in baseball right now. They're number one in baseball right now. They have some leniency. So, you know, if there's going to be injuries, we know with the Yankees, there's going to be injuries. This is the time of the year to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I know I talked to Gonzo about this. I'm going to get you guys' opinion as well. Obviously, they're talking about $300 million. He's 30 years old, $300 million contract. Is he worth that?
Is he 30 years old?
Yeah, Aaron Judge is 30. Do you give him that type of contract where he's at in his age?
Who
Aaron Judge is 30.
I didn't realize he was 30 either.
But who else? Who else, bro? Like, back, if we scale back over the history. I was just gonna say, if we scale back over the history of baseball, you know, at the times that we had the big names, we had McGwire, Sosa, and Barry Bonds. We had like, there was always a few. Alex, like, right now, there's not that many, bro. There's not that many. Judge is killing it every year. He's getting better, it seems like, all the time. I mean, who else?
I think Juan Soto is a conversation to see what happens with Juan Soto. I think if Juan Soto is willing to become a part of the New York Yankees, then I'm fully on board with it. You want to give Juan Soto $300 million at age 24?
Yeah, and he's young. He's young enough that you're going to get those prime years. My thing about Judge is this. He's played like 1,130-something games in his career, and he's missed almost 600 games of that 1,100. So when you got a guy who misses half of the time that half of his career has been on the DL, and now you want to give him $300 million, and he's 30. He's only going to miss more because of injuries. As you get older, he's a mortal human being. I have a hard time giving a guy $300 million when, you know, through the prime of your career, you've missed half of it due to injury.
But I also think the Yankees don't give a shit. I think
you're right, and you're right, because they have all the damn money in the world.
Yeah, like, they don't care. They're good. They're chilling.
I think they pay him.
I agree.
Yeah, I think they'll pay him because, and especially as he gets older, he'd be a great DH as well. Once they don't want him.
I think that's what's going to happen at one
Yep.
point.
Yep.
At one point, that just has to happen full time because a lot of those injuries are happening in the outfield.
I picture when the Yankees go to sign a contract, you know that scene on DuckTales where Scrooge just like swims through his bank? I think like all the players have to swim through the Yankees bank to the signing desk. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they got
100%.
so much, and it just keeps coming. They don't care about luxury tax, none of that shit. I think he'll turn into one of the greatest DHs we've seen, because all he has to do is stand and hit the ball. We know the dude can smack it. I mean, bro, there's not a lot. Like, look at
Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt. Look at these other guys that were just a few years ago in the limelight. They're gone. They vanished. You know, so you got to give it to him.
I would give it to
Yeah.
Juan before I gave it to him, though. I really
Agreed.
would.
Agreed. I would give it.
Well, I'll give it to
Juan
Juan
but
too.
In the question of does Judge deserve it?
Yeah.
I have to give it to him.
Yeah. 100%.
Only in America. Only in America. No, hey, so real quick before we get out of here, I'm just going to go final thoughts. See anything you guys want to talk about real quick. Gonzo, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I'm just ready for hopefully a good playoff game tonight between the Celtics and Heat. Give me something to watch because I'm not watching the Reds tonight. They've killed me the last 2 nights. So I'm taking a night off from watching the Reds.
There's nothing better than doing an unscripted show with Gonzo and you're talking about something and all of a sudden you hear like, are you freaking kidding me? And you're like, Gonzo, who are you talking to? No, man, it's the Reds. And I'm like, oh. It's awesome.
Hey, this series is even worse because my girl's he's a big Chicago Cubs fan. They like
you definitely get it at home.
I've got to listen to her all day. The last 2 nights, that's all I've heard about is about the Cubs.
She's probably going to bed. Hey, man, how'd them Reds do? You can't even go to bed in peace. Mike, final thoughts, brother.
It's a different kind of conversation, but I think there's a lot going on in the world right now with mass shootings in Buffalo and Texas and Chicago and just everywhere. That's more than just mass shootings. It's just kids getting killed every single day at the hands of guns. And I think, the power trip in America is really real, and we'll lose a lot of viewers over that. I'll lose a lot of friends over that, but I'll die on that hill that there does need to be a change in the power trip that is the Senate, that is this country. It needs to change. It needs to change when 90% of Americans think that there needs to be better gun laws. And then some guy on Capitol Hill who's never left his $10 million mansion tells you to go F yourself because it's not as bad as people think. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace to everything that we stand for and to what this country is supposed to be. And I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen in this world. There's a lot of ugly in this world. I'm grateful to always be talking to you guys as much as I do because, you make my day better. But there's a lot of crazy stuff in this world, man. So I just appreciate every single one of you guys. And there definitely needs to be change in everything that's going on. And my thoughts and prayers are with everybody affected in the last few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Jay?
Yeah, no, that's where my heart was, and that's where I was headed. I really stand by you with that. I agree, man, and it's bigger than what people see on television. It's easy. It's easy in the hood to get a gun. It's not about background checks. It's not about none of that. That's one part of it. But where most of us are from, right here that we're talking on this show, where most of us are from, you can walk outside and get one today right now. So and there's a lot of change that needs to be made. It's getting to the point now where you're worried about your kids being at school. What's their safety like in school? And that's something that no father or mother should worry about when they're doing something that's a necessity for the child's well-being and future. So it's definitely something we need to collectively as a whole combat. We go around the world solving people's issues. We need to start here. So we got a big one we need to solve. So.
And also one thing, if you're having problems or you feel like you need to hurt somebody or hurt yourself, go get help. Go get some help. That way nobody gets hurt. And because there is people that have mental problems, have problems, and I understand that. But go get some help so you don't do something that isn't your normal self.
Don't do it alone. Yeah. So my thoughts.
And again,
Yeah. No.
I was just saying, and again, I'm sorry. Jay, I apologize. What were you saying?
No, I was just going to end it. My thoughts and prayers, and I'm sure everyone here at ASAP, for all the victims in Texas right now. So you can go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My computer lags a little bit, so I wasn't getting. I didn't know when you started or not. But yeah, man. Here's the deal, man. Number one, this is May, and if you don't know by now, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. As we come to a close, and I have mental health issues. I know a lot of people in the country have mental health issues. I'm not afraid to go get help and talk to a therapist and things like that because that's what they're there for. And if you don't, and that's a problem too, is there's a lot of people out there who have mental health issues, but whether it be financial or whatever, if they can't afford a therapist or whatever. And so mental health help isn't always available because, of that. So I'd like to see maybe some more changes in that and how we can get mental health availability to people who maybe can't afford it or what have you. But man, yeah, it's like I said, my sister's a teacher at an elementary school. My wife's a teacher here in Georgia at an elementary school. And I always wonder, and I'm always kind of worried about that because you never know what people are dealing with and you never know where it's going to strike. So it could be, down the street or it could be across the nation. But and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And the thing about this, I don't think it goes away anytime soon because, Mike, here's the deal, right? There's gun control or background checks at a store. But if I want to sell a gun to Gonzo, I'm not doing a background check to Gonzo. I'm just going to give him the gun. It's going to give him the money. I give the paperwork and we go about our way. And that's where there's a lot of issues. But what I would like to say is this. What I would like to see is, because I don't think we can ever get rid of the gun issue, and I think if somebody wants a gun, they'll find a way to get a gun. But what I would say is this. What I would like to see is the Congress or whoever it is that does this, start putting marshals into the schools. And I hate to say that, and I hate to see, having to do that and go that route. But I think if you have marshals in the schools, that would definitely help, at least because right now I go to a school right now and there's nothing between me and in the classroom other than a couple of doors. If I have a gun, there's nothing in there to protect them. So again, I would like to see somehow or another, we got to put law enforcement into these schools to give these teachers and these students some level of protection, man. Because you should be able to go to school, you should be able to go to church and not have to, be wondering what's going to happen next, in your life. It's crazy.
It's getting crazy. Like I was told you, Jay, before we went on air, there's been 2 shootings just like 3 blocks from my house in the last 2 weeks. One yesterday, somebody got killed, and then one, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. It's crazy. Man. You have to be scared to even be out in the yard with your kids. And it shouldn't be like that.
It's the society. I'm telling you, it's the society that we live in right now. Unfortunately, man, it just seems like that's the way it's going. And again, I think parents, grandparents. I know, obviously, this kid. I don't know if he had parents or not because they never said. But I know I guess he was living with his grandmother. He was in high school and lived with his grandmother, and he killed the grandmother. And then parents got to start getting more into their kids' lives. Start investing in your children and finding out where they are, because let's be honest, Columbine was a high school shooting, a high school kid. There's a lot of high school kids out there that are doing these things. And and I think it's just a lack of parenting or not being involved enough in their life. So get involved in your kids' lives, find out where they are. And if they're suffering from whatever issues, get them the help that they need before we get to a level of, Robb Elementary.
Yeah.
My little 2 cents. All right, folks. This has been ASAP in the morning. Mike Hughes. God, it's so good to have you on today, man. Damn. I don't always get to hang out with Mike Hughes, man. And Gonzo, Frankie. Well, no, Frankie wasn't here today. Jay Ness. It's always good to have you guys, man. Appreciate y'all coming on. And y'all catch Unscripted. Hey, don't forget Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we got Robert Duran Jr., son of Roberto Duran, fighter, coming on the show. And it's going to be a good interview, I think, and it'll be fun. Until next time, we're ASAP in the morning. Peace out.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so time.